long last, the me generation is moving off center stage.
I'd like to age in place with the people I choose to age in place with.
Kicking and screaming into their tastefully appointed retirement villas.
The boomers are the first generation who may well leave things worse off for their children.
Which raises some pressing concerns.
We're gonna be here till 90. And what does that mean?
You just knew they weren't gonna go quietly.
I'm gonna better all these times. Tendinitis kind of throws a little wrench in it.
I'm Anne Marie McDonald. DocZone takes a timely look at the boomer revolution. They were bundles of joy in the post-war era of hope and optimism. The largest generation ever to be born. 85 million children in North America alone.
If you ever played with a slinky or played Twister or sat on a beanbag chair or wore something tie-dyed or hated your parents or were told to cut your hair and get a job, you're a baby boomer.
By virtue of their massive numbers, baby boomers defined our culture.
We ended a war. We started a sexual revolution.
Imagine what we could have done if we weren't so high.
Now the boomers are set to live longer than any previous generation.
We're going to have 10, 20, maybe 25 more years than our grandparents imagined they'd have in their life.
Ready or not, millions of boomers are about to revolutionize what it means to get old.
60's not the new 30 any more than it's the new 90. 60's the new 60. It's an entirely new stage of life.
These could be the most potent years of our lives.
If the boomers can figure out what to do with all their bonus time.
We have 30 years to go. What are we going to be doing?
The Canadian Masters Swimming Championships. More than 500 adults of all ages. But nowhere is it more competitive than in the middle-age lane.
It used to be that people peaked in this sport at 50. All you had to do was get to 50. There's hardly anybody racing. 50% of the people that are actually competing here are boomers. They're between the ages of 45 and 65. The boomers have just forced the quality and performance way up and off the charts.
Competition has been a way of life for this crowded generation. In every aspect, at every point in their lives, the boomers have no intention of slowing down. They still have many laps to go.
Back in the beginning of the 20th century, the average life expectancy in North America was about 47. And so, living to 50 or 60 was considered a very long life. Well, the life expectancy has gone up over 30 years in this last century, and it rises about 2.5 years every decade.
That increased longevity is only a bonus if it comes with good health. So the boomers are doing everything they can to prolong their youth.
There's no point in sliding into home plate at the end of our lives with our perfectly intact bodies, right? We might as well have a wine glass in one hand and a hockey stick in the other.
We're out doing things. We're mountain biking and we're playing softball and we're playing hockey, and it's just a different 50s, what 30 was last generation.
Boomers don't see themselves ever as old. That is not a word to be associated with them. Words like senior, senior citizen, they really aren't something that fit well with this group.
But the oldest boomers are starting to hit their mid-60s. And that wave will continue to crest for the next 20 years.
We've almost got a Shakespearean drama unfolding here. We've got this massive, rebellious, self-centered, innovative generation growing older.
It's an age wave that is often predicted to become a tsunami, drowning us all in skyrocketing pension and healthcare costs. Especially because some boomers were hit hard by the recession and have high debt and low savings.
I think that the boomers are the first generation in history who may well leave things worse off for their children and their children's children. But they're also the first generation that gets a second chance because they are moving into a period that is going to be 15, 20, 25 years in duration, where they'll most likely have good health and impetus to continue to be productive. I think they can turn that legacy around.
The baby boomer is found in great abundance in North America. Its original habitat was post-war suburbia, where males and females nested in small bungalows and mated over and over again.
The war ended in 1945 and the economy began to soar, and 92% of all women who could have kids did, and averaged just under 4 kids each. And that baby boom went on for 18 straight years.
Luckily, all those kids came with an owner's manual, courtesy of Dr. Benjamin Spock. He advised parents to give their children lots of self-esteem and independence. And it worked.
When these boomers were in their late teens and 20s, they were voting in the streets. But like every generation, they also became parents. And then they got a house and had to pay off a mortgage. And I often say there's nothing like a kid and a mortgage to get you settled down. You can't spend your time protesting if you've got to work and you've got family to raise.
The early dream of rebelling to make a better world quickly faded. Hippie idealism gave way to consumerism.
Sometimes people don't pay right away. They charge things and pay later.
The baby boomers sparked a business bonanza, boosted by a new invention, the credit card.
I remember when my mother would write my name on the inside of my underwear. Now I pay $50 a pair to wear another guy's name on the outside of my underwear.
Scott Harris and Simon B. Cotter are mining comic gold, rekindling the childhood memories of fellow boomers.
Anybody remember Tang? They somehow convinced our mothers that orange juice was no longer good for us. So instead of the morning, give them powdered granulated sugar.
What about Pixie Sticks?
Pixie Sticks.
Pixie Sticks, remember those? It was a tube about this long. The two ingredients were sugar, more sugar.
Is it any wonder cocaine was so popular with our generation? We were just trying to recreate the buzz we had when we were 5. You know? They are the richest generation. They are the most plentiful generation, and so we want to entertain them and take their money.
We drink $4 coffees in our SUVs. We got satellite cable and big TVs. We're a huge part of the economy. We're the generation that's all about me. Why can't they see?
The me generation really hates to give up the spotlight. But boomers have moved from the advertising sweet spot, the 18 to 49 age group, to the 50-plus blind spot, the land of infomercials for the sick and the lame.
They think it's good enough to have somebody with white hair pretending to be younger, and that's not what we're about.
The Zoomer Show, a consumer trade fair for boomers with zip, is one sign the advertising tide may just be starting to turn. As businesses scramble to catch up, suddenly realizing they're missing the boomer gravy train.
I think they need to focus on the older demographic, target what they actually want and need, and frankly recognize this is the group that has the money to spend. What is wrong with aging? It's a scientific fact. Everybody's going to age, so get over yourself and start to embrace it.
Boomers control 2/3 of all consumer spending. They're shopping not just for themselves, but for their children, grandchildren, and their parents. Parents who are going to leave them a $1 trillion inheritance over the next 20 years.
That demographic has become the most powerful purchasing power in the world. 1/3 of the world's purchasing power is going to be basically retiring in the next 7, 8, 9 years. Why anybody wouldn't want them as their focus group makes no sense to me.
As marketers gradually embrace boomer power, even boomer memorabilia has become cool in a retro way. Anything boomer can be trendy, all over again.
So pop culture is now fascinated with age, which is partly why we're trying to tee this off and get you guys to see demographics in a bit of a different way.
The 20-something employees at this Toronto company identify what's new and cool online and sell that market research. So to understand what's happening with the boomers, they need a crash course in recent history.
By the time that your average baby boomer was in their teens to mid-20s, Woodstock was coming around. Women were burning their bras. Everything was sexy and free and all about love.
So what are boomers looking for today?
Coming out of the recession, we found that Canadians were far more likely, especially boomers, to stray from that normal path of life and instead be focused on fulfillment. So looking at things like hobbies, crafts, starting new businesses, and really getting the most out of their life in terms of an experience.
Aging is not seen so much as something to be avoided, but something to be proud of. It's a badge of experience.
Over the last couple years, we started seeing something we called age embraced, which is that you did start seeing, Meryl Streep unphotoshopped in a magazine, or you would see a celebratization of the US Olympian who made it big.
If age can now be beautiful, it's thanks in part to this woman. Canadian Dale Haddon was one of the first supermodels to prove that beauty isn't exclusive to the young. Now in her mid-60s, she's still modeling and is on her way to a New York City photo shoot.
I've done this so long, I'd say like between 30 and 40 years, that I'm a dinosaur in this business. But I still have fun.
Dale started modeling in her teens and was soon a favorite of famous American and French photographers. But after 20 years, age became a barrier.
By the time I was 38 and they said, boy, you are so over the hill, you will never work again in that industry, I went, oh, you are so wrong.
So she did her own research on the size and influence of the baby boom generation.
I came up with amazing numbers, 40 million women in their 40s and up, and this was all new information, and I thought, oh my God, I have an opportunity to change the perception of the industry from the inside out. Because the industry is saying after 40 you're invisible, and my thinking was at 40 you're starting.
A little higher just so it's just the eyes.
So in the late 80s, Dale pitched herself as a new ambassador for Boomer Beauty and landed groundbreaking contracts with some of the world's top cosmetic companies. Her image helped steer the beauty business into a lifelong and lucrative relationship with the boomers. But like many boomers, Dale also wants to make a difference beyond her working life. She uses her famous face to raise money and awareness as a UNICEF ambassador. And for her own charity, Women One, traveling extensively in Haiti and Africa.
This is the most exciting time of my life. There's nothing that can compare to what I'm doing now, for me.
The boomers are about to have a lot more free time, and I think what we're probably going to witness is sort of a revolution in volunteerism and in giving back, because this idealism has always been a part of this generation.
Okay, so here we are in Castle Hill, what we call the most historical site in Alaska.
And businesses are catching on to the benefits of a boomer revolution in volunteering. Sitka, Alaska is one of the destinations for Rhodes Scholar, an educational travel group. It's giving boomers a way to give back.
We're getting food ready for the birds for tomorrow, and we're recording what's going to whom according to what their feeding schedule is.
This is Maureen Penman's idea of a vacation, caring for rescued birds at the Alaska Raptor Center, though feeding them was a bit of a shock.
When I came down the first time and saw gutted rats, wasn't quite expecting that, but that's what they eat, so yeah, I'm okay with it.
She's paying Rhodes Scholar $1,300 for the opportunity, spending a week away from her family and her job as a lawyer.
Sitka, you're grumpy, aren't you, buddy? It's okay, you're old. I've been there. I figure I've got the big three going for me. I've got time, I've got money, and I've got health. And one day, one of those is going to change. It just is. And so, I want to do this for as long as I can.
In Aspen, Colorado, another business keeps boomers skiing as long as they can. It wants to make them feel they can still conquer mountains.
Just remember to make sure and slow down, decelerate before you make your next turn. Bumps for Boomers is about the concept of skiing for life. There we go. We focus on balance and control instead of fast skiing. We use techniques that are easy on the knees and the back.
The ski industry was built on the boomers, but most take their last run in their early 50s. Giving them confidence to continue skiing safely keeps boomer dollars on the slopes.
The boomers have a huge percentage of our assets. They spend more on vacations. It's a natural fit for us.
At the Ford Motor Company, they want to make their cars a natural fit for older drivers. In fact, they want the boomer business so badly, they're prepared to literally step into the boomer's shoes.
Once young engineers put the suit on, the first thing we would want to do is try and get into the car, which is challenging.
He may look like an overweight astronaut in Ford's third age suit, but it's a good way to simulate what it's like to live in and drive in an older, creakier body.
You can't move your neck, you can't move your arms that further forward. You have to look left and right over your shoulders when you're merging, which is again challenging because you're restrained. The gloves reduce your tactile sensations. The glasses cover your vision. The earplugs reduce your hearing capacity.
Boomers buy more new cars and spend more on them than any other age group. Hands-free parking. No-cap gas tanks.
What service do you want?
Glucose.
Even monitoring of glucose levels and heart rates while driving. All innovations aimed at boomer drivers.
Young drivers feel that they're invulnerable when they drive. They don't have as much stress. Older drivers know what can happen out on the road, and so they want to make sure that they're being taken care of.
Seems the easy rider generation is actually willing to make concessions for their age. Meet Mark Adams. Turns out trikes aren't just for kids.
I have a lower back injury sustained in a peacekeeping mission. Two wheels was getting harder and harder for me to handle. But when I saw this, two wheels on the front, the stability and all the other inherent advantages, it was a no-brainer. At least 75% of the ones that are sold to boomers, baby boomers. The younger people just either can't afford it or it's not cool enough for them.
But boomers are the cool ones in this award-winning Toyota commercial, while their kids are stuck in the virtual world.
I read the majority of an article online about how older people are becoming more and more antisocial. So I was really aggressive with my parents about joining Facebook. My parents are up to 19 friends now.
We spend a lot of time looking at the advertising that does exist for boomers. So much of it is patronizing or condescending or just very obviously missing the mark.
Depressing a little bit sometimes.
Say that again?
Depressing a little bit. It wasn't fear-based or focusing on like retiring and money and like insurance and you're getting old and you're sick now and all this stuff. It was focused more on the shared jokes between the generations.
I have 687 friends. This is living. What? That is not a real puppy. That's too small to be a real puppy.
Venza. While businesses are learning the value of pitching to the baby boomer market, boomers themselves are struggling with just what the rest of their lives should look like.
They work their butts off at a single job all their lives and then retire and are dead 5 years later. If that's retirement, then I really don't want to do that. Thanks,
Can the boomers even afford to retire?
The boomers always turn lemons into lemonade. So if the boomers are going to have to work longer, it'll be cool to work longer.
Morning came bright and clear, and after a hearty breakfast, we started our tour of Sun City.
Ah, yes, retirement. The golden years. Just one endless year-round vacation. Or at least that's the dream we've been sold since the 1960s.
Our fun time doesn't have to be confined to 2 weeks out of the year anymore.
It was a solution to a purpose gap in the lives of older people a half a century ago. We had so many people who were retiring at 65, really in a mass way for the first time. Too old to work, too young to die. It was essentially a desert, a hiatus between the end of work and the end of life.
In those days, the hiatus was short-lived. You retired at 65 and were dead by 70.
We assumed that these elders were lined up for a life of leisure. We didn't know what to do with them, so we basically thought of them as folks that ought to enjoy sitting in a rocking chair and having a lemonade.
And where better to sip that lemonade than in sunny Florida or Palm Springs, California? But they both took a beating in the 2008 recession, and now Palm Springs hopes baby boomers will come to its rescue. That the lucky few who sailed through the choppy economic waters will still want the golden years kind of retirement. Some definitely do.
It makes it so much more relaxing, not worrying about maybe going back to work later on in life.
60-year-old Brent Terry was a FedEx pilot for 28 years. Now, he and his wife, Benet, are fully retired and fully mobile in their RV. In Palm Springs, they park it next to the small house they've bought at this luxury RV resort.
Gives us the ability to shut the doors and get in the coach and drive where we want to go, do what we want to do at any time we want to do it.
It's hardly your average trailer park. To qualify, you have to own an RV worth at least $750,000. The bungalow is another $350,000 to $500,000. But that's not a problem for the Terrys, who have a good pension, investments, and no children to support.
My father's generation, they bought something and kept it pretty much for their life until it totally wore out. We'll keep this for maybe another year and get a new one. You know, it's just that mentality that differs our two generations.
It looks like about a third of the generation are in pretty good shape financially. They can work or not work as they feel like. They're going to probably be the recipients of their own parents' inheritance, and I don't think we need to worry about them.
And the other two-thirds? 10% of boomers are officially low income and will struggle near poverty as they age. That leaves a big group in the middle, many with lots of debt and few savings. They're the boomers most likely to revolutionize retirement, whether they intended to or not.
Imagine visiting yourself in the future.
Still in the rat race?
When this classic commercial first aired in the 1980s, the average retirement age was 65. It dropped to 60 as more people bought into the Freedom 55 concept.
So, when did we start jogging? Right after the twins arrived. Twins?
They started retiring earlier, and at the same time, people were living longer. And so over decades, a new kind of gap emerged. What happens if you retire at 55 or 57 and live to 85 or 95?
You need a lot of money. 40% of boomers now say they aim to retire later than planned, not earlier. The average retirement age is expected to reach as high as 68 within a few years.
Life insurance was never my favorite subject.
Toronto actor Barry Flatman isn't a retiree, but he played an aspiring one on TV. He was 35 when he made one of the Freedom 55 commercials, but that was never the plan on his personal horizon.
I know I can't take it with me, but we're sure going to take some of it for a nice long ride.
I don't even know if you can introduce a Freedom 55 concept anymore.
Now Barry's 62, still acting with no intention of quitting.
This documentary is about boomers and retirement and age. So there, see? How appropriate.
It's not a concept, retirement, that really has ever been a part of my life. Certainly not the notion of you work your butt off and then put your feet up and then die. I mean, I never really got that. As an artist, that's not what I do. I'm interested in the world 24/7. My career is like this big learning curve, and that's going to go on whether I'm 65, 80, or 100.
Barry loves acting, but he also needs to work. He used a big chunk of his savings when life threw him a curveball.
Freedom 55, when I turned 55, I got cancer. So that didn't quite work out. And a scary cancer for an actor, too. Any cancer is scary, but I've got oral cancer. And so they took out a large piece of my tongue. I kind of talked like this for a very long time and had to learn to talk again. And it was very scary and a major challenge to not only sort of survive it, but still have a career.
This court is adjourned until tomorrow.
In my profession, it's difficult to stay alive and get jobs and pay the rent and have enough money. So that's one thing. It's like, okay, I live to 90, what am I going to live on? But if you haven't got your health, man, who the heck wants to do that? To me, I've always considered there's this bump in the road at 55. And at one point, sort of half my friends were making it over that bump and half weren't.
It's sort of like dodgeball. All of a sudden, you're walking alongside a friend and they just got knocked down, and then another friend dies. The thread between good and not good is very thin, and you get to realize that as you get older.
You may find this proceeding amusing.
Barry treasures his health and his ability to keep working. But most boomers say they'll keep working only because they have to.
My intention was to work, just wasn't exactly sure what.
Shirley Gust gets a pension of $24,000 a year from her former job, but it's not enough. Like 1 in 4 women her age, she's on her own with no one to share expenses.
I put some money into RSPs and so on, but not enough. Nice piece.
Shirley has a part-time job, runs her own decluttering business, and stages condos when business is slow.
So let's just set this here for now.
She raised 4 kids on her own and doesn't want to become a financial burden to them. Her mother lived to age 97. What will happen if Shirley lives that long, too?
I always hope something miraculous will happen, but I don't know what that would be. I know there's nowhere where I'm going to inherit money, that's for sure. So winning a lotto, I'm going to work as long as I can.
Like Shirley, many boomers are finding themselves in an unexpected situation thanks to the combined effect of a plummeting stock market, low interest rates, high debt, and a much longer lifespan.
There's no guarantees anymore, as the boomers have found out. Many of them lost a third to a half of their savings in the crash of 2008. I think it's a group that's facing a great deal of pain, and it is probably struggling through the transition much more than they should have to.
Are those potato chips?
Mark Friedman knows all too well what it's like to change retirement expectations.
Here you go, honey.
At 54, an age when many boomers are already grandparents, he's the father of a trio of young boys.
I've been struck on more than one occasion by the irony. I'm doing work that's fulfilling, but I'm also doing it because I've got 3 kids.
I got green, Mom.
I think the green is the way to go.
Friedman heads up Encore.org, a nonprofit that encourages boomers to have positive social impact in their later years.
Sometimes if you have no...
So many people have been working extreme jobs in their 30s, 40s, 50s while raising families. They haven't had a chance to even think about what's next.
One sec.
Friedman thinks we should use the longevity bonus differently. Intersperse those extra years throughout our lives, not tack them all on at the end.
What if people went to school for a few years in their 20s, maybe started working a little bit later, then had 2 or 3 opportunities at education? Rather than killing ourselves in a short period of time, we distributed the joys of productivity more sensibly across these much longer lifespans. Maybe rather than trying to save for 30 years of vacation, people could save for 15 years of vacation and put some of that other money into these transitions.
Good job.
One of the most difficult transitions boomers will face is changing where they live as they age.
Who want to be in a nursing home? Nobody.
So there's a boomer housing revolution a-coming.
I don't think it's crazy at our age to be thinking about it. It's good at our age to be thinking about it.
Baby boomers make up almost 1/3 of the North American population, but they flock to some places more than others. Areas with lots of recreational activities and a mild climate. The boomer capital of the U.S. is Denver, Colorado. The boomer capital of Canada? The Comox Valley on Vancouver Island, where the climate is the mildest in the country. And a whopping 42% of the population are boomers. More than 70% of the homes here are single detached, the traditional boomer habitat. So it seems the boomers aren't downsizing yet.
The boomers are probably going to need a little bit of a wake-up call.
Comox Valley architect Tom Dishlavoy says boomers are too dependent on their cars and too isolated in their communities to be able to grow old in their own homes.
No matter what you do to their nice rural or suburban house, they're just not going to be able to live there forever. And once they move, it's not going to be that aging in place that we'd all like to have.
New Comox Valley developments are trying to attract boomers with the promise of one-stop housing for the rest of their lives.
Our vision is that someone can start with a single-family home, downsize when the kids leave, move into a patio home or a condominium, and then ultimately be involved in one of our future extra care facilities and beyond.
So what happens if and when the boomers decide to sell their houses? Will it mean a flooded market with not enough buyers? That's the fear of boomers who are depending on their home's equity for a retirement nest egg.
The crash of the housing market is an open question depending on the level of immigration. Higher levels of immigration will maintain housing, and lower levels of immigration are more likely to cause a crash.
The peak of the boomer housing sell-off is expected to still be 20 years away. That peak might not be as sharp if boomers embrace innovative options sooner.
Declare yourself old earlier. Get it over with.
New York City architect Matthias Holwich wants to design a different future for the boomers. He and a group of internationally renowned architects are collaborating on a new 40-plus community called Boom. No suburban homes or small condo boxes allowed.
It is really about creating an environment which consciously already is designed the way that it doesn't become a barrier in the future. And why should that be just available when you're 65 or 75? It should be available much earlier.
Boom envisions different types of housing, but all with an emphasis on social interaction, the key for a longer, healthier life.
4 people can share a building with studio apartment type of organizations, and then there's a common floor where everyone can share then as kind of almost as a social space. We designed all of the houses always with master bedrooms, but multiple of them, so that you don't need to have a conversation. It's like, do you take the small room or the big room? It's all together in the same kind of equation.
Holwich wants boomers to embrace old age now and plan for it so they can eliminate the typical 3 moves in the last 3 years of life. Very difficult changes that take people out of their communities and into nursing homes.
When somebody else makes a choice for us, then it's a loss. If I make the choice, then it's a gain.
I think that boomers are going to realize the sociology of loneliness, because there's quite a large number of elderly people today living alone. We see our moms or dads or an aunt and uncle, and they're in a big house all by themselves, and they may not want to move into a planned community, but they may create a co-housing arrangement, or 5 women may come together and say, let's have a place in the country and one in the city, and we'll look after each other, and that'll be a good thing.
That's the kind of thinking behind Wolf Willow in Saskatoon, Canada's first co-housing development for a 50-plus group. It's a concept imported from Denmark that's all about aging in place with a built-in support network.
See the way the balcony juts out? If you stand on the corner of that, you can see right downtown. Really neat.
Ken Wiggins and Margot Day are two of the founders. They're moving here from their farmhouse outside the city.
We don't need 2,700 square feet anymore. So to live together in 1,100 square feet is going to take a lot of adjustment.
But there will be lots of room in addition to the privately owned units. An extra 3,500 square feet of shared space. From a big communal kitchen to a music room and a woodworking shop. It brings back memories of Ken and Margot's youth in the 60s.
We lived communally for a time, big old house with friends, and so in a sense, it's kind of going back to that kind of community.
There were some questions that were brought up at the last information meeting.
Most of the Wolf Willow residents started off as strangers, but they're becoming more like family.
Hi, Grandpa.
It's a word whose definition has been dramatically broadened by the boomer generation. Divorce, remarriage, and a new openness to gays and lesbians have all changed the notion of what makes a boomer family and who we'll grow old with.
Anybody want chicken salad down there?
Oh, you weren't hungry eating it all week.
Karen Ungerson is the modern matriarch of this extended Vancouver family.
Had all those already.
Karen was married to Marcel, until Marcel came out as a gay man more than 15 years ago. Since then, Karen has married Tom, who was divorced, and Marcel had a relationship with Jill, a relationship that is now platonic. Karen wants to plan a way for the boomers in the group and some close friends to grow old together on a big piece of land outside the city.
I'd like to age in place with the people I choose to age in place with.
People that you love.
People that I know and that I love.
People who love you. Yeah.
People that I have a history with, that I can count on, not sort of thrown in with some strangers who I'm sure are perfectly nice, but they're not people you have a history with.
How many people do you want to invite?
Well, we've talked about 10, 12 people.
And it might
be groups, might be 4 or 5, might be couples, it might be singles involved in there. There might be different strategies for buying into it or renting a portion of it.
I mean, I'm going to be 95 there. I'm not, the whole plan is to go the duration.
Crazy. Well, I mean, I prefer this.
The plan lacks a lot of specifics right now, but they know they need to develop it while they're still healthy and active.
New crop of boys.
Fitness is something they all work at, particularly Gilles, who has been a passionate swimmer since his teens. Now he's training to defend the national records he holds in masters swimming, a plan that's threatened by tendinitis in his shoulder.
I don't know yet if I'll be challenged this year. I told myself I'm going to better all these times. That was my goal. And that's still my goal. Tendinitis kind of throws a little wrench in it. I'm starting to think now, these things apparently do happen as we get older.
As the boomers accept and embrace their age, aging well is going to require resilient bodies and minds.
They'd say my brain is suddenly horrible. I can't remember what I ate for breakfast, what movie I saw, I can't remember what I'm doing. It's scary.
Your brain's consuming 25% of your daily energy intake.
Dementia is the boomers' second greatest health fear, right after cancer. But the boomer brain is not entirely on a downhill slide. It can rewire itself, particularly if it gets some help.
What you got to continue to do is find new ways to challenge your brain. Learn a new language, solve a new puzzle, continue to educate yourself.
45 seconds. Is that all we got?
Oh no, it's double side.
What we have in middle age is a brain that is very good at complexity, very good at problem solving, very good at seeing the connections between the dots.
Dining table. Okay, rectangle.
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 You know, they used to think that we lost 30 to 40% of our brain cells as we age, and we don't. Our processing speed slows down, no question. You know, the processing speed in our brain from our 20s is a slope that you don't want to look at.
Baseball bat.
But we're better at getting the gist of an argument. We're better at sizing up the situation. That really leaves us with a lot of brain power to come up with creative solutions.
Oh, read all the red-nosed reindeer. It's antler.
There was no creative solution for the tendonitis in Gilles Baudin's shoulder. But he's competing at the Masters Swimming Championships anyway, hoping to hang on to his national record. But he comes up short, losing his record along with the race.
Next year, I'm going to be 100% healthy, and I'm going to better all my times that I did this year. I was about to throw in the towel a week ago, knowing that I wasn't 100%. But now looking at the choices I made, I'm glad I made that choice. I didn't throw in the towel, because if you throw in the towel once, it's so much easier to throw in the towel the next time.
That resilience, the ability to bounce back, is fundamental to the boomers' future. Their longevity bonus means it's more important than ever to nurture their minds and their bodies.
I've gone from will I live to 60 to let's go for 100.
Actor Barry Flatman recently celebrated his 7-year cancer-free milestone with the help of 2 brand new knees. He's convinced they'll carry him for decades to come.
Most people our age have to really think about that we're going to be here till 90. And what does that mean?
One of the great legacies the boomers can leave is to redefine this period in life in a way that works well for all generations. Close the shades so it'll be nice and dark. So by the time their children do get to this point, it will be understood that you're not over the hill. There'll be opportunities for people to continue to contribute.
I think that this longevity revolution, at the end of the day, will have a bigger impact on economies, on relationships within families, on business opportunities, than either of the industrial or technological revolutions of previous centuries. And I think the boomers are going to really be the pioneers of this very different version of longevity.
If you missed some of this airing, you can always screen our documentaries at cbc.ca/DocZone. I'm Anne Marie McDonald. Thanks for watching.